Cup of coffee, beginning of week 2. So cheers.
Cheers.
And I think we should introduce ourselves because we're kind of new faces. So I'm Kaya.
Luisa.
Sarah. Isatis.
Great. And so let's start with you, Luisa. So you're part of the Brazilian delegation.
That's right.
So tell me what part Brazil has played in the negotiations thus far.
Actually, not only in the negotiations, but also around all copy. Brazil is actually arranging a lot of events, and we are 800 Brazilians here officially.
Wow.
And it's kind of a lot of people, and I didn't realize that before they told us.
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure that we are a lot more because a lot of us don't have a badge. So.
And how does that compare to other clubs?
I met this guy at a side event, and he told me that he's been participating since COP5, and that they were 8 back there. So it's
wow. So you've like 100 times more.
Yeah, in only 16 years.
That's amazing. And so why is Brazil so important to these?
Oh, I could point many aspects, I think.
Okay.
First, it's a BRICS country, so it's a huge economy with a great population. We are a continental country, so it's already something that makes a difference when you talk about climate. But also now they are really focused on forests, and I think that speaks by itself.
Yeah.
And Brazil also started back at the 70s as a country from the developing world that was really against it. It usually was with the speech that you already took your part, now we are taking ours. And it's really important that now we are at the other side. And Brazil usually takes the lead in some negotiations. It's doing bilateral agreements as well. It's working as a country, but also at the state level. So.
Oh, great. So could you point out like a couple kind of big either bilateral agreements or side events they've hosted that have kind of shown what part they played?
Of course. Just before COP, they sit together with Germany and the United States as well. China, I think, but the two big agreements were with those two countries. And not only to financially support, but also to set up goals and the ways forward. And that's the main point that we really want that everybody does. And also here, we had this event at the embassy with a lot of Brazilians and people from other countries discussing specifically Brazilian place now and where we were, where are we now, and what we see with the INDC. And also inside COPY and both official events and side events, a lot of times Brazil came up in the talk, even if we weren't a main part of it.
Okay. Do you guys have anything you want to ask about Brazil?
Yeah. What is Brazil take on the standard of temperature? Like, are you leaning more towards 2 degrees or 1.5?
I don't think we really have an official statement about that. All I've seen so far, they are sticking with the 2 degrees because it's what the world has agreed. But I haven't seen them talking against or for.
I believe your INDC also indicates 2 degrees.
Yeah, officially, But I'm not sure that it's a position or only to say we agree with all you, we are in this together. I couldn't say. So.
Yeah, because the movement has been like building momentum a little bit after the INDC were turning. So
well, maybe we could talk about that briefly, because that was kind of the end of last week. A few countries said they wanted 1.5, which was cut. So do you remember that?
Yeah, like in the Climate Vulnerability Forum, they came forward with a declaration of saying that we want 1.5 and cut in emissions by the mid of the century. So that was kind of the least developed countries or the most vulnerable ones. We also have some big economies that have said that they support that, such as France and Germany. So I feel that that's a little bit of a step forward in that direction.
I mean, that's a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
France and Germany saying we want 1.5 degrees instead of 2.
Sure.
And I think a large push from like CSOs, so civil society organizations, especially CAN International, which is Climate Action Network, that's what their entire platform is and what all of the negotiators go into as their subscribing piece to be able to mediate this platform. And that's 1.5 to survive.
Yeah.
Okay. And so do you want to set up, Sarah Beth, just kind of what this week looks like? So we had the first week is over. Predict the future. What's going to happen this week?
So the ADP draft ceremony ended, so that's the ad hoc working group for the Durban platform.
Thank you for explaining
It's
all
fine.
the acronyms. Although in that one, I'm like, I don't even know if that helps to explain what the acronym means.
It's quite interesting because there are two bilateral streaming events that are happening right now, and that's the Lima Paris Action Days, and that's the LPAA, and then the ad hoc working group. So the ADP also finished on Saturday, and this was like around like 10:30 p.m.
Wow.
I left at 9. Just kidding, I was there the whole time. But I think what we're moving forward with now is that this prescription from President Francois Hollande that ministerial level input is required now at this point to lead the negotiations because of the importance of this event.
Okay.
And that's what you'll be seeing now arriving as an enormous amount of heads of state. So not presidents, but prime ministers and a number of different people who are not usually leading the negotiations at this point back in Peru or in Warsaw, as we previously have seen. And I think that's significant and meaningful because they're like cards on the table, no one's going home. It's important that everyone who has a stake in this game, especially those with the ability to lead, are leading their negotiators. But the previous COP president from COP21, Manuel Polgado Vidal, is named the special envoy for leading these negotiations, and that was an announcement that came out on Friday, which was also significant. That role never existed, so I think that they're really pushing down. They're pushing down on this identity and this need and moral imperative of making sure some type of concrete decision is made by Tuesday while we're moving forward with the draft text, which was cut down to 46 pages from 50.
That's that's going in the right direction, right?
I think so, but I think like maybe something that you're most interested in, and we were talking a lot about Article 5, which is the loss and damages mechanism within the ADP, and for the first time it's been introduced, and I think this was from BRIC countries as well as from least developed countries, the narrative that there should be a piece included about climate displaced peoples. And that had not really been broached before because you have this terminology, climate refugees, climate migrants. What do you introduce into UNFCCC speak as a language for codification for people who are displaced by climate change? Climate displaced peoples. I don't know how you guys feel about that term. Is that appropriate?
Well, you have these people that are displaced, but they are not, like, it has been proved, like, in courts that they don't have the rights to be called refugees. So then it's important that that piece come into the agreement, even if it's displacement, because in the regular form of refugees, they wouldn't be protected. So right now what we're seeing is that they're putting it under loss and damage mechanism, but they're not sure if there's going to be a loss and damage mechanism, so that may come out in the adaptation. So they're just like kind of having those two options. That's what the text is seeing right now.
That's interesting.
Yeah, the loss and damage mechanism is like a way of saying we developed countries have a certain responsibility about the damages that we cannot mitigate of climate change. So we have to put something like to help like developing countries to cope with these effects.
Right. So everything that'll happen, things that we can't mitigate and can't adapt to.
Exactly.
The damages that'll happen.
There's a saying that, at least from the developing standpoint, is like you mitigate what you can and you adapt to what you can't. But when you have a severe lack of resource base across countries that cannot adapt to something, what does that mean for them? Right. It's not so catchy a phrase then at that point.
No. Does Brazil have a opinion on that? Do you know?
Brazil has a historic of receiving people.
Oh, okay.
not specifically a speech again about climate displacement or refugees or anything, but we saw recently with Haiti and all the problems in Africa that Brazil had this huge program to try to receive them all. We still have some problems inside to actually locate them and give them access to human rights, but we have this history of opening. So I suppose we are not going to stand in the middle, but I don't see Brazil taking a real step forward and having this flag. But again, we don't have an official speech yet. But I agree with you that maybe it's two different negotiations. Although they are putting them together, I see migration in a different point, in a different step in the negotiation than loss and damage. So maybe this is going forward in this COP21. And about the language, I'm not sure. I would have to think more about it because I never stopped to realize that. But at first, I'm worried that all that we have evolved with the terminology climate refugee may be forgotten if we have a new one now. But I'm not sure. Maybe with a new one we can have new things coming as well, and that should probably be better. So lots of pros and contras, I think.
It seems like that's kind of the way of these negotiations. Lots of pros and cons.
I don't correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why it's not refugee is because of the Geneva Conventions.
Yeah,
because
I know that.
Okay, so that's the main reason I think that why we cannot move forward with that particular framework, because then it requires the United Nations a moral responsibility and a legal responsibility to act upon so many displaced peoples.
Yeah, but my worry, I get that, and I know that it's also a discussion between soft law and hard law that we are having with the binding effects and all those things, but also we are kind of evolving from the law point of view, because some international courts are already applying the terminology refugees from the Geneva Convention. So and it's really protection that you bring together with this name. So I know the difficulties because with hard law it's hard to change. But maybe if we have the countries to agree that it's indeed refugee, maybe it would be even a bigger step. I don't know.
Well, let's keep our eyes peeled on the lots of issues to kind of watch this week as actually the official COP and the big guns come out.
Yes.
And we'll keep checking in.
Sure.
So thanks, guys.
Thank you for having
Cheers.
us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Here we go. Long week ahead.
Citizens' Voice.
Citizens' Voice.
Citizens' Voice.
Citizens' Voice. Citizens' Voice.